fundamental requirements for resorbable sutures are that they are required to maintain their tensile strength for a minimum of 14 days on average, or however long they are required for the wound to properly heal. They have to be sterile as not to further infect the patient with any new bacteria that could cause a secondary infection and potentially increase the healing time. Sutures also have to have a pliability about them so the surgeon can easily place them into the body without them breaking. This also means that a suit of elasticity is needed so not to break when being tightened or tied into a knot. As the sutures are resorbable, this means that they will eventually degrade over time and inevitably produce byproducts as they begin to break down. These byproducts have to be non-toxic so that they can be metabolized by the body and then later excreted. As they degrade, the products also need not to cause any inflammatory response from the surrounding tissue that they have stitched together. Finally, these sutures need to not interfere with any drug delivery methods, and then the degradants must not interact with any of the drugs the patient may have been administered. Sutures work by stitching two pieces of flesh together, whether the flesh has been surgically cut open or by accident through injury sustained. They are there to provide a biomechanical stabilization to allow for the natural healing process to take place. They are placed along the collagen fiber lines so that you can reduce the risk of scarring and reduce the healing time. Here is a short animation showing an incision that has been sutured. Biodegradable polymers are used because generally by the time the wound is healed, the bulk of the suture has been broken down, meaning a secondary operation to remove them is not required. This is especially useful for when they've been used in deep tissue suturing, such as when the gut has been sutured back together, as reopening the body and removing them could cause further complications due to surgical problems. On average, resorbable sutures perform on par mechanically with non-resorbable sutures, and cosmetically they are even thought to perform better. They are particularly useful when operating on infants, as where their blood vessels are still growing, where a non-resorbable polymer may restrict their growth when a resorbable polymer would have already begun to break down by the time the blood vessels started to grow again.
Absorbable suture materials. One absorbable suture material is polylactide coglycolide acid, or PLGA. The most common PLGA suture is composed of copolymers made from 90% glycolide and 10% L-lactide. The suture is coated with polycaprolactone and calcium stearate. This is to reduce drag when being applied through a patient's tissue. Drag reduction is a necessity due to PLGA being a multi-filament synthetic fiber. Once applied, PLGA exhibits little or no tissue reaction. Polydioxanone, or PDO, is composed solely of the polyester polydioxanone. PDO is a monofilament synthetic fiber which exhibits the highest tensile strength of monofilament absorbable sutures. Due to the monofilament structure, PDO passes through tissue easily, causing very little trauma. Polyglycolic cocaprolactone, or PGCl, is composed of glycolide and epsilon caprolactone copolymer. PGCl is also a monofilament synthetic fiber, which exhibits very high initial tensile strength and has similar consistency to nylon suture material.
PLGA, or polylactide coglycolide, is a linear copolymer of lactic acid and glycolic acid. It is manufactured via condensation polymerization of lactic acid and glycolic acid, or ring opening polymerization of lactide and glycolide, which are the cyclic diesters of lactic and glycolic acid. PLGA is an amorphous polymer, with ester bonds all along the polymer backbone. PLGA sutures undergo bulk degradation via hydrolysis of the ester bonds within the polymer backbone. This process can be described in four main steps. Step 1 is hydration, where water penetrates into the amorphous region and disrupts the van der Waals forces and the hydrogen bonds, causing a decrease in the glass transition temperature, which makes the sutures more flexible and allows water to enter the structure more easily. Step 2 is the initial degradation. This involves cleavage of the covalent bonds with a decrease in the molecular weight. Step 3 is constant degradation, which is when the degradation process starts being autocatalyzed by carboxylic acid end groups. This results in massive cleavage of the covalent bonds in the polymer backbone, resulting in a loss of mass and integrity. Finally, step 4 is solubilization, where the fragments are further cleaved into molecules which are soluble in an aqueous environment. Hydrolysis turns PLGA back into lactic acid and glycolic acid, which naturally occur in the body. Glycolic acid is excreted through urine, whilst lactic acid can be converted into CO2 and pyruvic acid, which enters the Krebs cycle, which controls the release of stored energy within the body. The body's own blood and tissues provide the water for hydrolysis to occur. allowing PLGA sutures to be used all over the body. Living tissues don't actively participate in the breakdown of PLGA until the fragments are small enough to be assimilated by phagocytes and further hydrolyzed intercellularly into monomers. One exception to this is the foreign body response to PLGA sutures, where surrounding cells produce free radicals and acidic products, which can increase the rate of degradation. The degradation rate of PLGA depends on several factors. The main factor is the ease at which water can access the ester bonds to hydrolyze them. Lactic acid contains hydrophobic CH3 or methyl groups, which repel water molecules. Therefore, the more lactic acid in a PLGA copolymer, the slower it degrades. PLGA is amorphous in general, but can have regions of crystallinity depending on the ratio of lactic acid to glycolic acid units. A more even ratio results in less crystallinity, as the differences in monomer size and shape prevents aligned crystalline regions from forming. Crystalline structures are dense and water cannot pass through easily, whereas amorphous structures have more spaces for water molecules to enter. As such, crystalline structures will hydrolyze more slowly than amorphous structures. PLGA hydrolysis can be catalyzed by acids, and so more acidic environments will cause faster degradation rates. The carboxylic acid end groups of lactic acid and glycolic acid auto-catalyze the reaction as they are produced, and so the degradation rate accelerates over time. The copolymer with the highest degradation rate is PLGA 50/50, as it has the lowest crystallinity. One of the most common PLGA sutures is polyglactin 910 or Vicryl, which is 90% glycolide and 10% lactide. It maintains 75% strength after 2 weeks in the body, 50% after 3 weeks, and takes about 3 months to fully degrade.
Polylactide coglycolide acid advantages. PLGA has a high tensile strength and exhibits predictable absorption by the simple hydrolytic mechanism. The braided structure requires a coating to decrease drag through tissue and therefore decreasing irritation. The braided structure also exhibits good knot security and easy knot placement. However, the main disadvantage is also down to the braided structure of PLGA. Although the added coating does reduce friction, in comparison with monofilament sutures, irritation due to application is still higher.
Polydioxanone, also known as PDO, PDS or poly-P-dioxanone. So what is it? Well, by definition, it's a colourless crystalline biodegradable synthetic polymer with a chemical formula of C4H6O3. PDO is obtained by reopening the polymerization of the monomer P-dioxanone. However, this process needs heat and a catalyst to form the polymer of multiple repeating ester ether units. PDO is degradable through hydrolysis. This begins due to the water in the body reacting with the sutures. This causes disintegration, which forms 2 hydroxy-ethoxy-acetic acid monomers. These are then broken down into water and carbon dioxide. No matter where in the body PDO sutures are placed, the main degradation process is through hydrolysis, and the process of PDO thread disintegration comprises of 3 stages. Stage 1 occurs in weeks 3 to 12. Now here there are no visible signs of any damage or cracks on the filament surface, even though it's lost 9% of its weight. Now this implies that during the first 3 months, the polymer hydrolysis occurs only on the very top surface. In this stage, the slow rate of hydrolysis occurs because the polydioxanone structure is so dense that during the first few weeks, the water molecules just cannot penetrate through it. However, in stage 2, between 12 weeks and 6 months, the PDO threads begin to show signs of disintegration. In this phase, visible cracks start to appear on the surface of the thread. These cracks allow water to penetrate through, and as a result, the cracks become wider and deeper, and the new threads now start to show visible signs of disintegration. Finally, in stage 3, around 6 months after insertion, the remaining thread fragments diffuse into the surrounding tissues or skin, depending on what part of the body the suture has been inserted. Once these are completely diffused and the end products excreted in urine, digestion, or exhaled as CO2, the polymer is fully degraded by hydrolysis. How can the degradation rate of the polymer be changed? Well, firstly, altering the pH. The higher the pH, the faster the degradation. Secondly, heat treating. Studies have shown that annealing the thread causes the rates of degradation to decrease. And last but not least, the stronger the ultrastructure, the slower the rate of degradation.
Polydioxanone advantages. Due to its monofilament structure, PDO passes through tissue easily whilst causing very little trauma. PDO has the highest tensile strength compared to any other monofilament synthetic absorbable suture. It also has a very long absorption period. Combining the absorption period with PDO's high tensile strength, it is a suitable suture where long-term tissue approximation is required. The main disadvantage of PDO is down to its monofilament structure. The suture can be wiry, which can lead to handling difficulties and a tendency for knots to unravel.
There are many medical applications of polydioxanone. It's used in ophthalmic surgeries and paediatric cardiovascular tissues, where growth is expected to occur. PDO has also been the answer to non-surgical alternatives for tightening and lifting the face and neck. Here's Dr. Karimi to tell us more.
NovaThreads are dissolvable PDO sutures that are used for skin tightening on the face, neck, or anywhere on the body. NovaThreads are new here in the United States. They're used of polydioxanone or PDO suture, which has been used in different surgical specialties for many decades.
An alternative to degradable sutures are tissue adhesives, used to glue together wounds and incisions, allowing them to heal together. One option are cyanoacrylates. These are synthetic glues that polymerize in contact with water, allowing a waterproof bond that seals the wound. They are commonly used to close lacerations and for minor wound repair, as well as procedures like closing fistula and gastric varicose bleeding. Commercially available brands like Dermabond and EpiGlue are based on different types of cyanoacrylates, like 2-ethyl and 2-octyl cyanoacrylate. They do have some limitations. Patients may be sensitive to the glue or to formaldehyde, a toxic byproduct produced as the glue degrades, and the adhesive itself may peel prematurely in areas of high tension or mobility, such as joints, which may need to be immobilized with splints. It's also not recommended for use on mucous membranes and skin with dense hair. Fibrin glues are adhesives based on clotting proteins, mainly fibrin and thrombin, which catalyzes the proteins to polymerize. The glue is used in surgeries like splenic injury repair, cardiopulmonary bypass surgery, and skin grafts. Fibrin glues are absorbed within days to weeks as the wound heals. Since they are based on proteins from the body, they don't cause inflammation or foreign body reactions, so are biocompatible. A new type of tissue adhesive under development is Metro. It's derived from tropoelastin, a precursor to elastin, a protein found in skin, lungs, and blood vessels. It is shown to be strong and elastic enough to seal incisions in lungs and blood vessels, while still allowing for their natural movement. Like fibrin glue, it's derived from proteins from the body, so is biocompatible and breaks down harmlessly as the wound heals. Degradable metals are also under development. They will allow for sutures comparable in strength to traditional metal stitches, allowing for uses that current biodegradable stitches aren't strong enough for, without needing to be removed from the body. Zinc and magnesium are two metals considered for stitches, as well as other uses like stents and bone implants. Research is focused on developing alloys with appropriate resistance to degradation while maintaining their strengths.